Hey, what's up guys? So in case you've been living under a rock for the past year, there's this little thing called Turkesterone that has been taking the internet by storm lately. However, in certain circles, there's a list of things that you don't talk about, and at the top of that list is religion, just below that is politics, and then right below that is Turkesterone.
Guess that's my guy. I can take him, no problem.
And this is largely because of how divisive Turkesterone has become lately in specific circles. On one side of the aisle, you have guys that proclaim that they are vehemently opposed to the intake of Turkesterone because there is no, quote, any clinical data to support its consumption. And then on the other side of the aisle, you have guys that claim that you can essentially get steroid-like results from taking Turkesterone. However, like most things in life, the truth probably lies somewhere in between. On one hand, it is true that the clinical data is extremely inconclusive at this moment. However, from an anecdotal standpoint, I have nothing but good things to say about ecdysteroids. However, like most things in life, there is literally no such thing as a free lunch. And so essentially what I want to do in this video is walk through the possible side effects of some of the proposed mechanisms of action. Now, it is important to note here that a lot of these are going to be extremely loose connections that are kind of conclusions from the proposed mechanisms of action. So there isn't a lot of hardcore clinical data here. However, I did want to, again, dive into the mechanisms of action and kind of at least provide some proposed possible side effects here. Now, the primary proposed mechanisms of action that ecdysteroids are getting a lot of attention for is that they appear to be fairly potent estrogen receptor beta agonists as well as G protein coupled receptor agonists. Now, this is the primary mechanism by which ecdysteroids cause their theoretical anabolic effects, and downstream of their activity at these two receptor sites, they also appear to activate the PI3K and AKT pathways. Now, the PI3K and the AKT pathway is the primary means by which ecdysteroids theoretically induce muscle protein synthesis. However, it is important to note here that the research here is extremely preliminary, and when it comes to kind of proposing some possible side effects that might be associated with this mechanism of action, it is important to note that it is extremely difficult because there's not really that many even pharmaceuticals that are able to activate this pathway. However, if you do take a deeper look into this metabolic pathway, you will recognize that the PI3K and the AKT pathway is intricately involved in the immune response and inflammatory pathways. Now, a lot of people don't understand this. However, it is important to note that when you exercise, one of the primary means by which your body actually responds to exercise and able to induce adaptations to exercise and induce muscle protein synthesis is actually via inducing states of inflammation. And this is one of the reasons why taking anti-inflammatories just before a workout or just after a workout has been demonstrated to actually hinder the adaptation to exercise. However, theoretically, by improving the responsiveness of the inflammatory pathway to exercise, there is a theoretical improvement to the adaptations to that exercise. Now, the possible side effects to actually keep in mind here are for individuals that already have an overactive immune system. So for individuals that have autoimmune issues or maybe autoimmune issues run in your family, this might be something to keep an eye out for just if you start to notice symptoms of autoimmunity issues. And now I'm not saying that this is 100% possibility. However, this is just something that I'm proposing that may be an issue for some individuals that may be predisposed to inflammatory and immune issues. Now, the next mechanism of action that I want to talk about is the possible possible adaptogenic properties of ecdysteroids. Now, again, the research here is extremely preliminary. However, there are a couple of different studies that do demonstrate that ecdysteroids may possibly have some adaptogenic properties to them. Now, adaptogens are a class of herbal supplements that are typically used to aid in the adaptation to stress. And now they typically do this by either one, suppressing stress hormone signaling in the body, or by two, increasing levels of specific neurotransmitters in the central nervous system. Now, adaptogens are something that I do talk a lot about in my complete guide to supplementation. And so if you're interested in learning more about adaptogens or pretty much any other supplement that you could possibly think of for the use of improving specific health markers, make sure to check out the description for a link to that complete supplement guide. Now, the adaptogenic properties of ecdysteroids seem to be mediated by their ability to simply increase the levels of some specific neurotransmitters, namely dopamine, epinephrine, and GABA. Now, dopamine and epinephrine are some of your primary stimulatory neurotransmitters and help kind of like to improve attention and focus and motivation, whereas GABA is actually one of your primary inhibitory neurotransmitters. And so by increasing the level of these neurotransmitters in the central nervous system, it does appear that ecdysteroids do have some stimulatory properties to them, as well as some anxiolytic properties to them. And this does appear to be a common case with most adaptogens. Most adaptogens do appear to have both stimulatory and inhibitory properties to them. However, ecdysteroids specifically appear to be a little bit more stimulatory in nature. Now, this can be a good thing for guys that are looking for a little bit of boost in energy and motivation. However, for guys that already have an overactive nervous system, there are a couple of different side effects to keep in mind here, namely just simply things like nervousness, anxiety, and a rapid heartbeat, and even insomnia. Now, if you are somebody who tends to run into side effects related to anxiety, stacking ecdysteroids with things like L-theanine or ashwagandha may be a good way to actually mitigate against the risk of these side effects. Now, the next mechanism of action that I want to talk about real quick is the fact that ecdysteroids appear to be an aldosterone mimetic. Now, aldosterone is a hormone that is produced by the adrenal glands that actually tells the kidneys to hold on to electrolytes such as sodium and potassium, and by doing so actually increases blood volume and thereby increases blood pressure. And so you would think that there may be a possibility of ecdysteroids increasing blood pressure. However, it is also important to keep in mind here that ecdysteroids also appear to bind to the estrogen receptor beta, which also causes vasodilation. And so when you increase vasodilation, it actually decreases blood pressure. So this may not be practically relevant, simply because even though ecdysteroids do appear to possibly increase blood volume, which does typically increase blood pressure, it also again causes vasodilation, which may kind of negate the effects of the increased blood volume. Now, this is one of the primary means by which ecdysteroids kind of improve the sensation of the pump in the gym. However, if you are particularly worried about blood pressure, I would just simply stack things like L-citrulline and sodium nitrate on top of your consumption of ecdysteroids, just to kind of cover your bases. Now, the next mechanism of action that I want to talk about is ecdysteroids' ability to possibly reduce blood sugar. Now, this is typically actually a good thing in most individuals, especially if you are consuming ecdysteroids with a high carbohydrate meal. However, in specific situations where you may already have low blood sugar, like during a cut or during a low carbohydrate diet, there may be some issues with ecdysteroids actually lowering blood sugar a little bit too much. Now, the primary side effects that are associated with low blood sugar are things like irritability and lightheadedness and nervousness. And so if you start to experience some of these side effects, it may actually just be because of the dropping of blood sugar. Now, the obvious way to mitigate against the risk of these side effects is to consume ecdysteroids with a high carbohydrate meal, and just to simply consume more calories. However, this likely won't have much of an impact on most individuals that are aware of their blood sugar, and may actually be a good thing for some guys that are particularly hard gainers. When blood sugar drops, typically there's an increase in appetite, and so ecdysteroids may actually also improve appetite for guys that are trying to intentionally gain weight. However, for guys that are at particular risk of blood sugar dysregulation, I would just simply make sure to not take ecdysteroids on an empty stomach. Now, the last mechanism of action that we're going to talk about real quick is somewhat of an obscure mechanism, and that is that ecdysteroids appear to be P-glycoprotein pump inhibitors. Now, P-glycoprotein pumps are one of the means by which your body is able to clear drugs and toxins out of its system, and is actually the primary mechanism by which piperine or black pepper extract is able to increase the bioavailability of certain drugs like curcumin. Now, this can obviously be a good thing in certain situations. However, it can also be a negative thing in particular situations, and I do think it's important to note here that a lack of function of the P-glycoprotein pumps is actually associated with symptoms of IBS and even Alzheimer's disease. Now, these are extremely loose connections at this point. However, I do think it is worth noting here, P-glycoprotein pumps are essential for your body's ability to clear toxins out of particular areas of the body. Again, it's just something to keep in mind, and is actually one of the reasons why I, after doing research for this video, came to the conclusion that I'm actually going to reverse my stance on cycling turkesterone and ecdysteroids because of all of the different mechanisms of action, or rather the possible mechanisms of action. I do think it would be prudent to cycle your intake of turkesterone. Assuming that ecdysteroids do have some level of biological effects in humans, I just think it would be prudent to take periodic breaks from supplementation, just because we just don't know the full effects and the level of effects of some of these mechanisms of action quite yet. Now, I am still somewhat of a fan of ecdysteroids and turkesterone. I do personally notice somewhat of an effect on muscular volumization and vascular effects, as well as some slight improvements in energy and performance in the gym. Now, it is obviously not a super top priority for most individuals. There are a handful of other supplements that take first priority when it comes to building a proper supplement regimen. However, in the right context, I do believe that turkesterone has a place. Now, if you guys are interested in a complete breakdown of my thinking on the top supplements that can be used to improve overall health and performance, I would highly recommend checking out the complete guide to supplementation that I just finished this week. It has a breakdown of the 9 top health goals and essentially like 10 to 15 supplements, the top proven supplements that can be used to help achieve those health goals. And so again, if you guys are interested in something like that, I would highly recommend it. I put several months of work into developing this guide so that you guys can kind of get a glimpse into my thinking on specific supplements. And so if you're interested in that, check out the link in the description, as well as links to my favorite products and services. But other than that, make sure to leave a comment down below if you have any questions, and I will see you guys next time.